small Indiana town of just 3,000 people. On February 13th, 2017, Libby and Abby went hiking. The two teenagers were good friends and had the day off from school. The weather was unseasonably warm, but when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry, and they began to search. Then, the next day, the bodies of these two girls were found, both victims of murder. Then, over the course of the next 5+ years, there were no answers, no arrests, just a series of disjointed clues, like two sketches that looked nothing alike, a video of the suspected killer, and a short audio recording of his voice.
Talk about one thing that you said. You stood up there and you said you weren't sure what kind of emotions you were going to feel today.
Yeah.
And talk about that. You pulled up and it just hit you.
Well, I got up really early today, and I didn't really work all day yesterday, and in my mind about what was happening, and I just decided to take the long way here. And I was going to get here early, and I decided not to. So it was about a 2-cup trip, and I just disappeared into the rural areas of Delphi, from Delphi to my home, and it was a bit surreal. And then when I pulled into the parking lot, it was really surreal, and it was just peaceful. I just felt, weird. I didn't expect that.
Visibly emotional up there. Can you talk about that? I mean, you've always said this was personal.
It is personal. It's personal to all of us, and to be able to participate and see the raw emotion, and to see the commitment and the dedication of not just from the state police, but from, the sheriff's office in this county has 12 deputies, I think. The city of Delphi is very small, but it's a wonderful, wonderful community. And just to see the level of commitment at a time when most people would have just...
All right, what is up, guys? Welcome to the Transparency. Good morning. Happy Friday. Got the haters out there. I will get that second video back up for you guys. It was taken down for privacy claim, but clearly it's not breaking anybody's. This is a public document. Sorry, but that's just them's the facts. But my haters, man, I take so much free rent up in their heads. Love it. I have a question. What's that, Boston? The question you have? My allergies. It's almost about to be allergy season. So, what's up, Boston? What's your question? Why does that man, bridge guy, have to be the one? Exactly. He doesn't have to be the one. In fact, bridge guy is actually a 20-year-old. Like, so whatever that, like, we're going to actually, this part of it gets kind of into that. I think Tony Liggett should be fired. I think Tony Liggett should be facing criminal charges. And I think that he will face all of those things. Like anything, the law takes time, but there's no way that this man's walking away and still keeping his career and his freedom. And if he does, this Tony Liggett guy does, then the people of Indiana, that's your fault. You could do something about this. You live there. Do something about this. So with that said, this man lied in an affidavit. That's perjury. He lied in sworn statements to get another man arrested for one of the highest, profile cases to come out of Indiana. One of, obviously everybody's still talking about it across, the United States. And I just think that I don't think there's anything worse out there than railroading an innocent person. And for what? For your fat ass to become sheriff? When you do a good job and when you're the best, you don't have to fucking worry about stacking your deck. So, so yeah, now allegedly there's people that are in Delphi in Indiana, and that people that are friends with people in this investigation, and that they've known since day one that there's multiple voices on the recording. It's not the recording in its entirety, and it's out of order. It's out of sequence. And I'm like, claps for you. Who can go out there on national television and say this? That means like you're a pussy. Go out on national television and say, hey, this is the deal, and give it to people. But going out there and telling people that you know something and you just sat back and didn't do anything. Like you're just like, I don't even know. You look like a fool. And Court TV and whoever put his ass out there looks like a fool. So hopefully that answers your question there, Boston. I don't think Bridge Guy looks like Richard Allen, in my opinion. I don't know. I like to see his what? So we're gonna get into that though. But Bridge Guy, the picture. Okay, first of all, the sketches. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine you meet with a sketch artist, the abduction, then you find out that they were murdered, and 3 days later you meet with a sketch artist, and the sketch artist sitting down with you, and you're going through all all the features, and okay, boom, 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 boom. Okay, great. Now we have this sketch. And they turn it over and you're like, how is this? And someone says, oh my God, that's like a 10 out of 10. And then they don't release your sketch. And in fact, they don't release any sketch for like 2 years. And they release a sketch of somebody else from 132 days. So Sarah then does a sketch of her driving and who she thinks she saw while she was driving her vehicle at like 357 on that like 300 road, 300 Northwest, whatever. And so can you imagine when the sketch gets revealed? Okay. The sketch gets revealed. And if you were Betsy Blair, you'd have been sitting there watching television and they drop this, big old sketch. And you're like, that's not my sketch. They released Sarah's sketch, was the first sketch that they released, which was the 127 days past of time when Sarah, and her sketch is from the guy that was walking on the roadway. That's the sketch that they released as being Bridge Guy. Then Betsy finally gets to see her sketch, which came out, what was it, 2021, and that's the sketch that made like Anna Williams and the families go, wait, what is that? Wait, what do you mean there's another sketch? What do you mean? And so then they released this sketch that looks nothing like the sketch that the first sketch. But here, guys, the sketches were actually not in that order. Sketch number 2 happened 3 days after, and she said it was a 20-year-old person that was on that bridge. Brown hair, poofy. Wait, so if you think Bridge Guy looks younger? No, we're talking about the sketch. They didn't we're saying this woman, Betsy, she said that she was there. She gave the time. 3 days after the murder, she sits down with the sketch artist, and they make the sketch. That sketch is held back for years. So much so that they actually released Sarah's sketch first, which was the guy walking from and on the road at 3:57 p.m. Way far away. Betsy said she was like 50 feet from the guy. Anyways, I said to myself, why in the world wouldn't there have been a release of Betsy Blair's sketch like immediately, or anybody's sketch immediately, when you're talking about such a small community. You're talking about a small community that only has 2,500 people. A sketch, like they released the Boston Bombers sketches, okay? And of course you had, if you watched over that documentary, you had the FBI want to do things one way, you had Boston want to do things one way. And ultimately Boston told the FBI to go fuck themselves pretty much and did it their way. And they put out the videos of the guys. And it was to hopefully have the public come forward and like say who these people were. Well, I can't imagine living in a small community. Think about like if you were in high school, because my high school had roughly like 2,000 kids. And if you would have released a sketch and it was one of the kids in the high school, like then we can all look at it and figure out who that person is, right? But what it also told me is that I don't know where Betsy Blair lived, how old she is, what she does, but this person, neither one of these people were like, okay, I knew that person. You know, they had to give a description because they didn't know the person. And Betsy Blair said that this person was in their younger 20s, max early 30s, but she originally said that this person was 20 years old, the person on the bridge. 20. Not far off from 18, you know. 20 years old. Richard Allen, okay, is double that. Double that. And now why Betsy Blair's account of things is way more important, because she was 50 feet away, and this is somebody that would be like right there at the bridge 3 days after, and it's a 20-year-old. It's a kid. It's somebody that would have just like graduated high school a couple years ago. You know, and think about it too, though. I feel like depending on how old you are is how like you would gauge how old somebody is. You know, I'd be horrible at that game at Cedar Point, where they ask you like, guess my age. I'm horrible at that. But depending if you're an older person, a younger person, like to describe somebody, I think I'd do a pretty good job at that. But to guess their age, I think it would just depend on how old I was when I was asked that question. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Did you buy some green? You get some green? Oh, yay. You got some greeners. Yay. Oh, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you guys for those of you guys that became members, new members, old members. Wow, time flies. Keep on going, girl. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we're going to jump right into this, but kind of giving you a little bit of a background there is 50 feet away. Wow, she must have great eyesight. Well, imagine Sarah. Sarah was she was out. This guy was walking on the road, and she was driving her car coming, like, never really like past him, but like was off on the way. I mean, nobody's going to kill somebody, be out in the middle of like along the side of the street, all muddy and bloody. But wait till you see this, guys, because these people never use this language. This fat fuck flat out lied in a affidavit to arrest Allen. And last night, I appreciate Bob Motta's work. So he was on, and I caught a little bit of what he was saying on, was it News Nation? Maybe it was Court TV. Way better people this time around. But Bob Motta said that you're looking at, you know, the poisonous tree, the evidence that would come from it. Richard Allen's confession would be thrown out if it's in fact ruled that they had no probable cause to ever arrest him. That means everything that would come from the arrest of Richard Allen is out. Kind of like the Brian Kohlberger case, you know. So that means his confession inside the prison out. That means anything they got from his house out. Everything to do with Richard Allen will be out if they rule that the arrest of Richard Allen was in fact, there was no probable cause. You know, when you take out the stuff that Tony put in, when you take that stuff out, would you still have signed this? And a judge is going to say, no, fuck no. If I would have known all this stuff, do I sign that? Absolutely not. No way. So, but it was interesting to hear him talk about it, because it needs to be said that that confession would also be tossed. So what do you have? I mean, I don't even know what they got from the house, but I believe they have nothing, even if anything was to stay from the house. But we have to consider Richard's age at the time of the bridge versus the arrest. You can consider that all day long. Richard Allen's in his 40s. Double the age. Richard Allen has zero ties to anybody. Like I said, when I was deep diving this back in the day, because they were all trying to say that this was some, you know, kiddie porn stuff, which we're going to get into that right here. It mentions it a little bit. But let's go ahead and do that. Why would he have confessed if he is innocent? Then I'm going to ask you to read a book about false confessions. Also, it says it in here why. They told him, confess on the phone, we're going to kill your wife and child. So, depends if you believe people like that are going to hurt people. Depends if you believe that these people are fucking crazy. And I mean, 2 girls were just murdered in this type of way. And if Richard Allen didn't do it, which I don't think he did, then yeah, I think that he has every right to fear what people like that would say to him. So, but let's take a look. And what I'm going to do is just to ensure that this stays where it needs to stay. I'll be reading with nothing on the screen. So enjoy your little Lana read at work. All right, guys. Elvis Field's connection to the crime scene. Now, I went on a deep dive and I pulled up pictures of all these people. So I guess I can show that first. You guys, these people are not attractive in the slightest. I don't know what they're doing over there in Indiana, but everybody looks the same. Everybody looks the same. And like I said, I don't know what they're doing over there in this area. I don't know if they're procreating within these small family circles, but they all look the same. And we need that to stop over there in Delphi, okay? I knew Shauna King would like that. There you go. It's my humor for today. That's like when people say all the Italians look the same. Then they say all black people look the same. And now I'm just going to add it to the map that all Italians look the same, all black people look the same, and now all Odinists look the same. Oh, shit. So, anyways, happy Friday. There's your Friday fun. Now I got a couple messages saying, is it just me or does everybody in Indiana and in this area, do they all just look the same? And I started laughing. Not all of Indiana looks like that, says Karen. I agree, Karen. That's why I say it's Delphi. I just blame Delphi. You know, blame Kokomo. Shit, blame the Beach Brothers, Beach Boys. Who's ever singing Aruba, Jamaica? I want to take you. Kokomo's got some characters too. But now Indiana sure does have some great colleges, guys. Hit up those colleges. A lot of good schools in Indiana. That education might be there, but all right, so here we go. Again, I'll pull up those pictures here in a little bit. But going back to this Elvis Fields guy, I thought maybe he was like a younger kid. No, man, not at all. All right. Again, the defense has previously discussed and presented the side-by-side photos that demonstrate that Elvis was mimicking Brad Holder, the Facebook stuff. But what else did they find out? What other connections? And just so you guys know, Elvis Fields has 4 to 5 to 6 Facebook pages, okay? And same thing, man. He takes more selfies than a 14-year-old girl. It must be a thing. But I noticed on one of his Facebook accounts, he has 4,999 friends. You can have up to 5,000 on Facebook. And these are all like, I'm going to just say it. These are like prostitutes on there. These are girls with fairly dressed. And and I'm just thinking, oh God, he's friends with all escorts. Anyways, Elvis Fields said that he was now part of a gang and had a brother. Okay, so there was this 12-page Odin report that these guys made up that were on law enforcement. And so page 1 of the Odin report, Mary Jacobs told law enforcement that on February 14th, a day after the murders, 2017, Elvis was rambling, hyper, and borderline incoherent. He was talking about having a brother, even though Elvis has no male siblings, and was now part of a gang. Elvis told Mary that he had been on a bridge with 2 girls that were killed. Elvis told her that someone named Abigail was a pain in the ass and a troublemaker. She said Elvis tried to give her, Mary Jacobs, a blue jacket. What? She told him that she had her own jacket. After Elvis made these statements to his sister, Mary Jacobs, she later became aware of the Delphi murders and put 2 and 2 together. Sometime 2 to 3 weeks after Elvis made the statements, Mary Jacobs and her husband, Troy, drove to Delphi. While in Delphi, Mary Jacobs talked to law enforcement about the things Elvis had told her on February 14th. But, quote unquote, due to the mass amount of tips that were generated, her information may have been overlooked. The defense has requested that the prosecutor locate the tip sheet that contains accurate details as to exactly when Mary Jacobs and her husband visited law enforcement and what was communicated during this visit. Unfortunately, this is yet another piece of evidence that the defense has not received. Okay. You guys, this is somebody that drove there after her brother says that he did this, okay? Offers her a blue jacket, okay? And I mean, like, these are things that were said. Nobody knew about any of this. Nobody knew about, like, this public of, here's Rich Guy, he had a blue jacket. Like, this is stuff that was said without any knowledge of anything. Okay? So when you want to ask me, well, Lana, how accurate, you think it says, well, Mary Jacobs passed the polygraph flying colors, like, boom, passed. Do I think that Mary Jacobs is telling the truth? Absolutely. Do I think that Joyce, his other sister, is telling the truth? Absolutely. Okay, they passed polygraphs. Now, if my spit is found on the girls, but I can explain it away, would I still be in trouble? In December of 2018, Mary Jacobs enlisted the help of an old acquaintance of hers named Misty Moore. Since law enforcement had not followed up with Mary Jacobs from earlier in the year when she drove to Delphi and described what Elvis had told her, Mary was still concerned that Elvis was involved in the murders, but nothing was being done about it. Misty Moore worked for Homeland Security out of out of Greenfield, and Mary was hoping Misty could assist in locating someone from law enforcement to become interested in Elvis Fields. Mary talked to Misty Moore, who then passed this information on to the proper law enforcement channels. In January 2018, Mary was finally interviewed. On February 1st, 2018, state police gave Mary Jacobs a polygraph to determine whether Mary was being truthful about what Elvis had told her almost a year earlier. Mary passed the polygraph. More on that later. Based upon what Mary Jacobs had told law enforcement in January of 2018, and based upon Mary Jacobs passing a polygraph in February of 2018, law enforcement then interviewed Elvis on February 27th, 2018. This interview was videotaped, but the defense team just received the videotape on September 8th, 2023. So they're still going through that. Jerry, good old Jer Bear. Jerry Holman from United Command conducted this interview of Elvis. Kevin Murphy was also present. Thank God, Kevin Murphy. During this interview, Elvis agreed to take a mouth swab that would be used for DNA. Jerry Holman and Kevin Murphy, both with the state police, explained the purpose of the mouth swab with Elvis. So Elvis was aware that the DNA from this mouth swab would be compared to any DNA from the crime scene. At the conclusion of the interview, Trooper Murphy dropped Elvis off at his trailer. As described on page 1 of the Odin report, after Elvis exited the police vehicle and walked toward his trailer, Elvis turned around before entering his house and walked back to Trooper Kevin Murphy's vehicle. When Elvis came near the squad car, Elvis posed a question to Murphy. What would happen if Elvis's spit is found on one of the girls, but he has an explanation? Would he still be in trouble? Elvis then walked back to his trailer. Upon hearing the troubling but incriminating comment, Trooper Murphy immediately called Unified Command and communicated with Detective Jay Harper. On August 22nd, 2018, Elvis's other sister, Joyce Muffet, I liked her as well, was interviewed by law enforcement officers Kevin Murphy and Greg Varnasy. On 2 previous occasions, Joyce had denied that Elvis had made incriminating statements to her. However, in this third interview, Joyce reluctantly recounted to both of the troopers statements that Elvis had made. According to Joyce, sometime in the fall of 2017, which would have been the murders were February 2017, so the fall 2017, 5-6 months later, Elvis Fields moved in with her, Joyce, following the death of her boyfriend. Joyce recounted the following statements Elvis made to her in the kitchen in October of 2017, at a time when they were living together under the same roof. I am in a lot of trouble. I am going away for a long time. I was on that trail and that bridge with those girls when they were murdered. There were 2 other people there with me when it happened. I spit on one of the girls after they were killed. Not only did Elvis make the incriminating statement about going away for a long time and being on the trail where the girls were murdered, but Elvis also confirmed to Joyce that he had indeed spit on one of the girls. Although Elvis reassured Murphy that Elvis, would be able to explain the spit, it is unknown at this point if Elvis has provided that explanation. Elvis lied to police, claiming he did not know Johnny Messer. Now, I went ahead and looked up Johnny Messer. Johnny Messer was arrested for, he was making counterfeit $100 bills. He was arrested in what you would call a meth ring. These meth. Yeah. I looked up all these people, and they're all involved in the concrete asphalt business. They have, interesting Facebook, I guess you could say write-ups about what they do. And this Ned Smith guy that we're going to hear about literally from 2015 to 2017. Whatever was on social media, he wiped clean. Elvis Field worked for Ned Smith. And right after the murders, stopped working for Ned Smith. And they were all like, I don't know, driving around like motorcycles and shit like that. They were like in a big old gang. Delphi sounds amazing. Actually, it's not even just Delphi. It's these surrounding little areas. I'll continue. So this portion of it is really focusing in on, you had all this information, like, what are you doing? And the lawyers for Richard are connecting people and showing you how they connect with their own words. In Elvis's June 2018 interview, Elvis unequivocally denied knowing the recruiter, Johnny Messer. However, in his October 2018 interview, which had just been a couple months later, Johnny then was interviewed, okay? And Johnny tells a different story. In that October 23rd, 2018 interview, Johnny says that Elvis lived with Johnny's uncle Billy. Billy, what a name. Johnny further stated in that interview that that Johnny would take firewood to see his uncle, go to his home during the winter, and that Elvis was living with Billy there. Most importantly, Johnny mentions that Elvis's boss and self-described father figure, Ned Smith, and Elvis's roommate, Rod Abrams, all were interested in joining Johnny Messer's Villander Club. And now these are all guys that do asphalt, okay? Remember, Brad Holder was also affiliated with that club. However, Johnny claims that the Villanders would not be interested in the likes of Elvis, Rod, or Ned. The importance of, and Ned has Smith Paving, and that's the name of that, like the Smith Paving Company. Check them out. The importance of Elvis lying to the police about knowing Johnny cannot be understated. Elvis had to know that if Elvis was connected to Johnny, then Elvis would eventually be connected to Brad Holder. It should again be noted that it is interesting that Ned Smith pursued an attorney for Elvis, and that Ned Smith wanted to sit in on Elvis's October 2018 interview with police. In doing so, Ned was able to learn what type of questions were being asked of Elvis, and provided Ned the ability to end the interview if Elvis started saying anything incriminating to Elvis, Ned, or Rod. This person who wanted to sit next to Elvis at the interview and had previously paid for an attorney for Elvis is the same Ned Smith that, according to Johnny, wanted to join Brad Holder's Villander crew. Now, Elvis's purported alibi, because you have this group of people, and they're trying to figure out, we just went over yesterday, it was Brad Holder's, he was at work allegedly, but nobody really looked into it. So here's Elvis's purported alibi. Rod Abrams lied about where he and Elvis were on February 13th, 2017. And Rod Abrams' false alibi conflicted with the alibi that Elvis actually provided to police. So both of these guys say opposite things, with one of them saying that they were with the other. Okay? So at his June 20th, 2018 interview, Elvis Fields told Farnacy and Murphy that Elvis, remembered being at home in Rushville 492 days earlier on February 13th. It is quite a remarkable feat for someone with Elvis's mental capacity to remember a specific day 492 days earlier. Some people, like actress Marla Henner, are blessed with something called autobiographical memory, which clearly he doesn't have. He has the capacity of a 7-year-old, according to the police. Elvis Field had the mentality of a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. Still, rather than admit that Elvis had no idea where he was on February 13th, like anybody would say, Elvis claimed that he specifically remembers not leaving Rushville on that day. The Rod Abrams problem. Now, Rod Abrams on August 29th, 2018, he was interviewed, okay? When asked where he and Elvis were on February 13th, Rod said that he, Elvis, and Ned, they were all together in Muncie on that day visiting a sick friend at the hospital. Again, there must be something in the water in Rushville, as Rod Abrams, when interviewed, was able to remember exactly where he was 562 days earlier. In addition to remembering that they were at the hospital in Muncie, Rod also stated that both he and Elvis had their phones with them. When told that, law enforcement would check the cell phone records to see if Rod was actually at the hospital in Muncie. Rod explained that hospitals cut cell reception on phones because they interfere with hospital equipment. So their phones probably would not show that they were at the hospital in Muncie. Like, what? This is what this guy is saying in an interview. In supplemental number 542, Joyce Moffat's interview provided in Discovery, handwritten notes presumably of law enforcement stating the following: Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, not in Muncie on 2/13/2017 at hospital. So they must have looked into this and found out that they were not at this hospital. So you have these three guys lying about where they are on February 13th. This was the conclusion of law enforcement. And obviously Rod Abrams' ridiculous statement that their phone records would not confirm that their phones were in fact at the hospital because the hospital equipment is common sense evidence that Rod Abrams was lying. Like, so here it's good to know that these cops actually went and got the phone records of, what's his name, Elvis Fields. So the phone problem, though. On February 13th, when the phone records came back, so they go and get these phone records of Elvis Fields. And so on February 13th, the day of the abduction and murders, phone records apparently show that Elvis's phone stayed in the same place in Rushville from approximately 10:30 a.m. until approximately 7:30 p.m. Phone records also show that Elvis, for some reason, did not use his phone whatsoever for roughly 9 hours. Elvis told law enforcement that he usually kept his phone on him, as stated in the previous paragraph. Rod Abrams stated that Elvis had taken his phone to Muncie to visit the mystery friend at the hospital. However, phone records would show that Elvis's phone was in Rushville during that time frame. What a bunch of fucks. Perhaps the most damaging piece of evidence that links Elvis to the crime scene was found in an unusual place, the middle of a report that memorialized the results of Mary Jacobs' polygraph examination. In Mary's pre-examination interview, polygraph examiner Stephanie Thompson recorded, just so you guys know, that's Bill Thompson's niece. I'm totally kidding. Polygraph examiner Stephanie Thompson recorded that Mary Jacobs stated, Elvis told her, Mary, that Abigail is a little troublemaker and that he placed leaves on her and used sticks to give her horns. Horns and antlers are common symbols used in pagan rituals, and Brad Holder himself displayed the Odinist fascination with horns on his Facebook posts. They did another exhibit 97, and if you look at that close-up photograph of Abby's head from the crime scene, from a distance, it may not be immediately noticeable. However, upon closer inspection, it is obvious that someone involved in the killings intentionally placed small sticks from a tree on top of Abby's hair to resemble horns or antlers. The horns formed from sticks on Abby's head looks similar to the images found on Holder's Facebook page. The defense has not viewed one single report that discusses the sticks placed atop Abby's hair shaped like horns. If you would have been able to compare that with Elvis's statements to his sister, that the sticks and horns on Abby, therefore the presumption is that Unified Command never figured this out. Trooper Purdy was present at the polygraph examination, but was not able to watch the examination, and therefore would not know about Elvis's words to his sister Mary about using sticks to form horns on Abby. Rather than now being curious in the year 2023 as to how Elvis knew such a thing, and then using this information as a basis to secure a search warrant or even an arrest warrant, Sadly, it is expected that law enforcement will do the exact opposite of being curious. It is expected that law enforcement will claim that the photo does not prove anything, or that the defense is exaggerating the photo. Perhaps Unified Command will huddle together and establish the go-to party line stance on how to deal with the problems created with the polygraph examination information and photo of sticks formed as horns on Abby's head in the crime scene photos. We're going to get a huddle going. The defense is not holding its breath. As the defense told Holman in his deposition, the unfortunate expectation is that Holman and Liggett will try to figure out a way how to solve that problem rather than to solve the case of who murdered those girls. Elvis's insider knowledge of the crime scene may be a place for Holman to start. Again, part of the Franks analysis for this Franks hearing involves the court reviewing the behavior of law enforcement to determine whether Liggett intentionally concealed and falsified evidence in Liggett's affidavit for search warrant. Liggett and Holman and the rest of Unified Command's reaction to the information contained in the polygraph examination concerning sticks formed into horns on Abby's head may very well reveal whether Liggett is interested in the truth or in burying the truth, which again is part of the Franks analysis. Now, Patrick Westfall, his connection to the crime scene, I believe that Patrick Westfall had a lot to do with this. Very capable, 6'3", 6'6" dude, strong. But he also had a son. So Brad's son, Logan, they would drive, and go to Delphi, and he'd bring his son because his son, would hang out with Patrick's son. Well, I was curious, who's Patrick's son? How old is he? And Brad Holder lived in Logansport, which is, 25 miles away. And so is it possible that people didn't really know who Logan was? And so like someone like a Betsy Blair, seeing someone like a Logan on the path or someone like a Patrick Westfall's kid. So I'm looking into still trying to figure out who Patrick Westfall's kid is and how old he was at the time. These names sound like something from a book. Yes, it is. It's totally out of a book. But that, we talked a lot about the whole Patrick Westfall. I do believe that if what's his name is involved, Brad Holder, like I said, I think Patrick and Brad literally did not talk again. And it talks about that. So much of what connects Patrick Westfall to the crime scene has been discussed in the section detailing what connected Brad Holder to the crime scene. To shorten this section, the defense will numerically lay out both the evidence previously discussed as well as a few other pieces of evidence that tie Westfall to the crime scene. And I think the biggest piece for me is Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall were friends at least until late January of 2017. And then they just never talked to each other again. Or at least if they are, they're not talking to each other publicly. It's not on social media. And in fact, Patrick Westfall, motherfucker, is in jail, has been in prison, in and out. And he used to have a Facebook account, and now he does not. In the Odin report, Brad Holder told Amber Holder that the person that murdered the girls was Patrick Westfall and his crew. But what's interesting is that Brad Holder is part of that crew. So, Brad Holder told law enforcement that Patrick Westfall has post-traumatic stress disorder. The video or the ritual in Fort Wayne, which I showed you guys yesterday, it's in here. Number 6. The video or the ritual in Fort Wayne they sent each other, which has been attached as an exhibit, shows Brad Holder videotaping someone that looks like Patrick Westfall using his fingers to mark a tree in the ceremony at about the same height that the F tree was marked with Libby's blood. And remember, I told you guys, this dude is tall. Okay. Leaving the question of whether Patrick Westfall made the F. Patrick Westfall lives within a 7-mile drive of where the girls were murdered. Johnny and Brad commonly hung out at the Moonheim Bridge and in the woods around the bridge. Patrick Westfall also admitted that he knew the woods surrounding the Moonheim Trail. Patrick Westfall Facebook post from just 2 months before the girls are murdered shows Westfall cutting tree limbs into runes by slicing the tree limb with an electrical saw, creating clean, smooth edges to the tree limb. Like, what? Yeah. And then in that same post, Brad Holder is commenting, cutting runes in like all exclamation points. At the crime scene, one of the tree limbs placed on Abby has its end sliced cleanly and smoothly, similar to the way that Patrick Westfall is slicing the tree limbs in Exhibit 98. Westfall's alibi for February 13th is that on the day of the abduction, Patrick, was at home with his son, Nick. So that's your guys' homework. Go find me everything you can on Nick Westfall. Go ahead and email me. If you guys can find Nick Westfall. There you go. We're looking up Nick. I mean, these dudes did this shit with their kids present. Just so and that's what kind of stuck out to me, is that this Betsy Blair is like, the person I saw was 20, not 40. Okay. So, there is no evidence that law enforcement knocked on the doors to determine if Patrick Westfall was actually home at that time. I mean, what did these people do for work that they're just home on a Monday at, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Please explain that to me. So again, there was no evidence that law enforcement knocked on the doors to determine if Patrick Westfall was at home at that time, nor any evidence that law enforcement walked around the neighborhood to see if any ring door cameras or any other type of cameras caught Patrick Westfall leaving his house. Law enforcement just believed Patrick Westfall when he was interviewed. Patrick Westfall was a pastor, by the way, for a religion that was passed on to him when Brad Holder stepped down. And it is a warrior type of a religion with many gods, including Odin and Thor. Again, Patrick Westfall and Brad Holder were both affiliated with the Villanders Club or gang, along with Johnny. On March 2nd, 2017, just only 16 days after the girls were found murdered, Unified Command member Kevin Hammond indicated that there was no lead required concerning Patrick Westfall, meaning no further need to investigate Patrick Westfall on March 2nd, 2017. Patrick Westfall is connected to the crime scene in multiple ways. It is unknown if Brad Holder threw Patrick Westfall under the bus to Amber in order to take the stink off of him, or if Brad Holder knows that Westfall murdered those girls and then marked the tree like he did in the Fort Wayne ceremony. Either way, it cannot be understated that one single solitary softball interview between law enforcement and Patrick Westfall is disgraceful, considering everything listed above that links Westfall to the crimes. Let's repeat that. It appears that Westfall was interviewed one time on February 19th. 2 weeks later, on March 2nd, 2017, Westfall was eliminated as a suspect. The defense is unaware of any search warrants requested on Patrick Westfall to determine whether this, his Astru pastor had taken clothes of Abby or Libby as ceremonial keepsakes, or even if he had saved Abby's blood. By looking at the five-paragraph report generated from the only interview of Patrick Westfall, it looks like law enforcement did nothing but lob giant softballs at Patrick Westfall, rather than conduct an intense interrogation, the way citizens would expect for someone that the evidence shows is so closely connected to the crimes. Sick. Fucking sick. This is so sick to me. And then I think what's even sicker is this Johnny Messer, because I found him. And these little, I gotta go through all my dumps of photos for you guys. Do you understand that this girl, Taylor Hornaday, was interviewed? And Taylor was Johnny's, I want to say, a girlfriend. Around Valentine's Day 2017, Johnny Messer went up there, she says up there, to Delphi to hang out with his Vinlander buddies. As stated earlier, Patrick Westphal claimed to be at home in Delphi, on February 13th. And Brad Holder claimed to be in Logansport on February 13th. Therefore, if Johnny Messer was going up there to visit his Vinler buddies, Johnny was going to Delphi to spend time with Westphal, who was likely Messer's brother or possibly a Logansport to visit, Holder. When Messer came back from being in Delphi around Valentine's Day, the vehicle he drove to Delphi had blood along the side of the vehicle. And Messer, had no explanation for the blood's existence. Blood. Taylor had to go to the car wash multiple times to clean off the vehicle. What? Evidence shows that the recruiter Johnny was the connective tissue between the Delphi crew and the Rushville crew. You guys, it's a 2-hour drive. It's 125 miles. Okay. You don't just drive 2 hours to hang out with somebody for a couple hours, by the way. I mean, you can, but that's just wow. Who does that? It's a Cali thing. Unified Command overlooked these connections, and furthermore, Liggett failed to inform Judge Diener of these connections to the murder scene. Now, this is where it gets, I want to say trigger warning, because they talk about younger girls. So, isn't it shocking how similar Brad Holder and Richard Allen look alike? Yes, it is. Blood on the car. Yes, yes. Money make an enterprise in the death of the girls. Yes. Yeah. All right, here, listen up to this. But like I said, this is a trigger warning. Okay, but it's all connecting. Okay, it's all going to connect here. It's very, very disturbing. Rod Abrams, the connection to the crime scene. Rod told police a lie about his whereabouts on February 13th. Remember, going to the hospital in Muncie. This was discussed and referenced in Elvis's section, as was the fact that Elvis's alibi conflicted with Rod, his alibi. Here are a few other evidentiary nuggets picked up from the defense's review of Rod Abrams' February 27th, 2018 interview. So almost a year after the murders, this guy's interviewed. Okay. And an interview that the prosecution just provided to the defense, mind you, on September 8th, 2023. Some of these evidentiary nuggets from Rod Abrams' videotape interview incriminate the fuck out of Elvis Fields. Here we go. Number 1. Elvis had been working for Ned Smith, like I told you guys, since 2005. They are the pavement pounding crew. They will pave your way. You guys need to check it out. Anyways, so Elvis had been working for Ned Smith since 2005, but then stopped working for Ned in 2017, the same year of the murders. Yes. And Ned Smith went and deleted from 2015 to 2017 stuff on social media on his business page. According to Rod, Elvis was communicating with a 12-year-old girl on the internet and discussing inappropriate things. Elvis used Facebook to communicate to young girls aged 13, 14, and 15. And remember I was telling you guys earlier, I found this fucking guy has like 5 or 6 Facebook pages that he says his name's, Elvis. And the disturbing part is that he took a selfie, or rather he took a picture of this girl, posted it, and said that this is like somebody that he was dating. This girl's like a 10, 9, 8, he's like a 2. And then somebody writes in the comments, I can't believe that all these people just want you for your money. And I had to spit my drink out laughing. He lives in a trailer, so I'm like, wait, what money are we talking about here? But then I was also laughing because they're not dating you because of your looks. But what are you talking about? Money, motherfucker. He lives in a trailer and he's eating off of paper plates every night. Anyways, you guys, I needed a good laugh. Okay. And so my laugh was, and I'll pull it up here. I'll show you guys his Facebook. This shit is crazy. How does this guy have 4,995 people? Okay. There's not even 4,998 people in the area that he lives in total. Okay. Everybody else has like 400, 500, 1,000 friends, on their Facebooks in that area. This guy fucking don't have friends, but he has 4,999 Facebook friends that are all escorts. Human trafficking is a thing. Continuing on. Elvis. When law enforcement asked Rod, has he, Elvis, ever talked about doing anything to a couple of girls? There is a long pause. Then Rod finally says no. Law enforcement officers say, are you sure? Rod responds, he's never, he has, law enforcement officers then say, you kind of hesitated when I asked you that. When Rod Abrams is asked if Ned Smith and Elvis will also say that they all were in Muncie, Rod Abrams doesn't answer the question, but after another long pause, tells a long rambling story about how Ned doesn't always remember things. Ned doesn't remember things because he's just sucking all those fumes from the asphalt every day. You know what? I want to call Ned Smith and ask him if he can come over and pound my pavement. Hey, Netty boy, looking for a good pound session over here on my pavement. Need you to come pound it out. Hey, Ned Smith, how are ya? Hey there. Are you guys doing okay? I need to get my pavement plowed over here, scraped. I don't know. What do you guys call it nowadays? Sealed. Yeah, I need some sealant over here. Should we give him a call, guys? Should we ask him? Let's ask him. Actually, I got to see if Indiana's a two-party state. Is Indiana a two-party state or a one-party state? It's a one-party? Are we sure? I'm double-checking. I can't remember. I don't really do that much in Indiana. Let's take a double-check. Hey, Surrey, is Indiana a one or a two-party state? Sir, you listen up. You guys, I told you Friday was going to be crazy today. For sure, I live here. It's a one. Oh, it's one party, isn't it? All right, we're going to go ahead and give Ned Smith a call. Because this is Ned Flanders. Hi, Ned Flanders. I mean Smith. Okay. Let's see. Gotta get the number that I wrote down. Investigation into counterfeit money leads to drug arrest in Rushville. Johnny Messer, Patricia Sally, Melissa Macy, Eric Boschman, and Taylor Wright, all pictured here 6 years ago, all involved in a big meth operation. Oh, wait a second. There it is. 765. What in the world? Do you guys know that Smith's Paving and Seal Coating did the Anytime Fitness parking lot? Guess what? That's where what's his name said he was. Yeah, I found it. Yes. Anytime Fitness next to Gettinger Meats is where they did the pavement, and that's where Brad Holders, said he was working out. I went on the deepest dive. Do you know that the last time that Ned Smith posted a profile picture on Facebook was October 3rd, 2017. These people all were basically told, listen, y'all are going to stop being on social media. Y'all are going to stop doing this, that, and the other. Otherwise, y'all are going down. It's very interesting. But the person that just kept on going was Brad Holder. He must think he was untouchable. All right. Smith Paving. There we go. Closes at 5. What kind of job is that? Oh, wait, here we go. Call now. Okay. Ned's
Your call has been forwarded to an
yes.
automated voice messaging system.
Yes.
Ned Smith.
Oh, yes.
Is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. To leave a callback number, press 5.
Hi, Ned. I was wondering if you're still taking new jobs. I have a long, rather skinny driveway. I really want my son to have a basketball court, kind of like outline. So I'm wondering if you guys can do the sealant or the coating or whatever you guys call it. But then can you get on all fours and are you able to outline and sketch for me the key and then the 3-point line? And then are you able to paint in the middle of the key, like my team favorite colors? I was just wondering if you guys do any custom jobs. But I was told that you are one of the best, and it is Friday, so I call it Fuck Around Friday. So maybe if you guys could just come by and do it on a Friday, we can all just throw back some beers with the PTA moms. Totally up to shoot the shit with you. Give me a call when you can, okay? Yeah, my name, Sue Ellen Lana. You could just call me Lana, but it is Sue Ellen Lana. But just give me a call, give me a ringy. And my cell phone number, 440. All right, honey, I will talk to you soon. Looking forward to it. All right. We're making sure that we get that phone call back. When you got to go undercover, guys, you got to go undercover. Back in the saddle again. All right. So with that said, let's carry on our way. You guys, happy Friday. A girl named Sue. Yeah, Sue Ellen over here. Shh, don't go with my secrets. I was going to go with Brittany, but Brittany's bad. Everybody thinks Brittany's DTF, and I'm like, I don't want him to get that excited. So welcome Fridays. All right, so carrying on. If he calls back, we will definitely pick that up. Come on over here and coat me up, baby. So when, Rod was asked about Ned, Elvis, the whole shebang, he was rambling on. Finally, law enforcement asked Rod if they can look at Rod's phone to see any text messages between Rod and Elvis. Rod refuses, claiming that Elvis no longer has his phone number after Rod changed his phone. According to Johnny, Rod, along with Elvis and Ned, we were all interested in joining Johnny and Holder's event. Like they were all, wanted to be in this club. So the lies about Elvis's alibi should have been especially alarming to Unified Command. However, the items enumerated above all should caused Unified Command to pause about Rod Abrams and Elvis's involvement in the murders. Now, they give a conclusion here. And it says that part 2 was dense with information. However, the court should be able to see that Tony Liggett knew about the obvious connection between Odinism and the murders, and specifically the connection to Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, and Rod Abrams, based upon the evidence provided to the court. The fact that a mystery pretty professor purportedly led the Unified Command off the scent of Odinites is preposterous. Additionally, according to Todd Click's affidavit, the FBI cold case unit determined that Odinites were involved in the murders. Hello, Jennifer Coffenhofer. There you go. The FBI cold case unit, baby girl. All up in that Odinite shit, baby girl. And, they're really good at their job, baby girl. So you're going to get on Court TV and get on News Nation, and you're going to talk about that. And you're going to talk about your good old buddies over there at the FBI. And at that cold case unit, they are bomb, which they are. And they believe that the murders were definitely of Odinite's involvement. But Unified Command did nothing to investigate the Odinites. Why? Unified Command seemingly rebuffed the Rushville investigators. Click, Murphy, Farnacy, who believed, based upon a large collection of evidence that Holder, Westfall, Fields, Messer, they were all involved in some capacity. Liggett's concealment of this Odinite information from Judge Diener was intentional or reckless or both, period. Now, the best part of today's Delphi deep dive is going to be the talks of right here. This is the nuts for me. This is the nuts and bolts. This is why Liggett will be arrested, in my opinion. He will lose his pension. I feel bad for his kids. If he has anybody that he's banging, I actually don't feel bad if you're banging him because, no thanks. But there is nothing worse than having power like this and doing this with it. Okay. And that's what this man did. And here is why he does not need to be sheriff. Carroll County, you need a whole revamp of your, administrative buildings, law enforcement. But part 3 is the Liggett concealed and falsified evidence in his affidavit for search warrant. This is disgusting. For Liggett's timeline to work and to place Richard Allen on the bridge at 2:13, the time of the famous Down the Hill video, Liggett desperately needed Betsy Blair to describe a man on the bridge that looked like Richard Allen, and perhaps more importantly, needed Betsy Blair to describe a car that she observed parked at the CPS parking lot at approximately 2:15 as looking like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed on the high bridge around 2 p.m. looked nothing like Richard Allen. Liggett concealed this information from Judge Diener. Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle she observed on that day at the CPS parking lot looked nothing like a black Ford Focus. Liggett also concealed this information from Judge Diener. For good measure, Liggett also lied about what Sarah Carbaugh observed at 3:57 p.m. that also blew up his timeline. Betsy Blair's first description of the man she saw on the bridge was memorialized in sketch number 2. Sketch 2, illustrated on February 17, 2017. Just 3 days after the girls were found, Betsy Blair sits down with somebody from Detroit that's a, whatever, what was their name? It'll come up. Comes up with this sketch, and 3 days after the girls were found, but does not release to the public until April 22nd of 2019, sketch number 2, following Superintendent Doug Carter's press conference. On February 17, 2017, Betsy Blair met with state police sketch artist Taylor D. Bryant and provided a description of the man she observed from 50 feet away. The same man that Liggett claimed in his affidavit was the killer. Betsy Blair told the sketch artist the man she, Betsy Blair, observed was number 1, a white male. Number 2, age 20. Oh, God. Whoa. Had brown curly hair. Brown curly hair. Medium build. Find attached and marked as Exhibit 103 the unredacted facial identification reference sheet. File is confidential. That contains the description that Betsy Blair provided to the sketch artist. Also, find attached a copy of the sketch artist that Taylor D. Bryant produced from Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed, marked as Exhibit 104. This illustration is also called Sketch 2 because it was released to the public second. Upon looking at the sketch, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist that, oh my God, it was a 10 out of a 10 for accuracy. The Unified Command did not release the Betsy Blair sketch to the public for over 2 years. Instead, they first released the Sarah Carbaugh sketch, also called, and we know it as Sketch 1. So it was released to the public first. Do you guys know that this Sarah sketch was illustrated by FBI sketch artist Plants from Detroit on June 19, 2017, and released to the public on July 17, 2017. Who was the person that Sarah was describing in her sketch? Well, according to Liggett's affidavit, at approximately 3:57 p.m., Sarah observed a man walking westbound on County Road 300 North. Sarah was headed eastbound on County Road 300 North, operating her motor vehicle while simultaneously observing this man walking on the road toward her on the opposite side of the road. This is the same man that Sarah described for the sketch artist on June 19, 2017. We will be discussing Sarah's description of that man later. Roughly 2 years later, in March of 2019, Betsy Blair met with Tony Liggett, frustrated that her sketch number 2, had not been released to the public. Betsy was frustrated because sketch number 1, which had been released to the public almost 2 years before, did not match the man that she, Betsy Blair, observed on the high bridge. So imagine this. You're Betsy, and you're over here like, what are you doing, dude? I met with you. That is not who I saw on the bridge. That looks like nothing like what I saw. And so she meets with them and says, when are you going to release, like, I'm going to start telling people that's not the man. Like, can you imagine, like, what would be, this case is, like, nationally known. Okay. So Betsy goes up, and Betsy even commented that sketch 1 was wrong. Like, whatever you guys are looking at, that is not right. Certainly, it was odd that Sarah's sketch was chosen to be released over the Betsy Blair sketch, which, again, ask yourselves why. Betsy Blair provided her description to the sketch artist only 4 days after seeing the man on the bridge. Well, it was fresh on her mind, compared with Sarah, who provided her description 126 days after observed on the road, the man on the road. Betsy Blair had a good look at the man's face while stationary from only 50 feet away. Sarah was not stationary, but rather traveling down the road, operating her vehicle while simultaneously trying to observe the man on the road. And let's think about it. You have no reason to look at what somebody looked like when you're just driving, you know. She wasn't looking for anything, you know. During her March 7, 2017 interview, Betsy Blair was talking with 2 members of Unified Command, Kevin Hammond and Tony Liggett. At this interview, Betsy Blair told Liggett face-to-face that the man she, Betsy Blair, observed on the high bridge fit the following description. The man was slender and youthful looking. He was more boyish looking. The man was in his 20s to early 30s. His hair seemed poofy, just as the sketch portrayed. He had no facial hair that she can remember. Finally, on April 22nd, 2019, Unified Command released Betsy Blair's sketch number 2 to the general public. In fact, upon its release, Superintendent Doug Carter commented that the man in Blair's sketch number 2 was responsible for the murders. They had it that whole time. Also, the time of the release of the sketch, number 2, Doug Carter also stated that sketch 1 had now become secondary to the investigation. On March 7, 2019, Liggett was presented with Betsy Blair's description and how she described the man observed on the bridge. Betsy was actually talking to Liggett face to face when she provided the description. Liggett heard Betsy's description of a much younger man with brown poofy hair, but chose to conceal this information from Judge Diener. Blair's description of a youthful, boyish-looking person in his 20s, maybe early 30s, with brown poofy hair, obviously does not at all describe Richard Allen. In order for Liggett to have provided Judge Diener with honest and accurate information, he would have had to state the following in his affidavit. This is funny to me. I, Tony Liggett, believe that Richard Allen is the man that murdered the girls for reasons stated herein. I also believe that the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge is Richard Allen, and therefore the killer. However, I must also inform the court that the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge really looks nothing like Richard Allen. Whereas Richard Allen was a man in his mid-40s with short or even shaved gray hair, the man that Betsy Blair described was youthful, boyish-looking, and had brown, poofy hair. Also, Your Honor, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist that the man she saw on the bridge was just 20 years old. This description came only 4 days after she observed the man on the bridge. 2 years later, Betsy Blair still maintained that the man was in his 20s or early 30s. Also, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist back in 2017 that the resemblance of the boyish sketch to the man that she observed on the bridge was a 10 out of a 10. I must also tell you, Judge, that this 10 out of a 10 sketch looks absolutely nothing like Richard Allen. Oh, shit, that made me laugh. That's what they said that should have came in his, affidavit. Liggett had a legal obligation to inform Judge Diener of the vast differences between Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed on the bridge and Richard Allen. He did not. The fact alone should be sufficient to merit tossing the warrant and suppressing the fruits of an illegal search. However, there is more. In order for Liggett's timeline to work, he needs Richard Allen's black Ford Focus to be parked at the CPS lot from 1:30 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. Betsy Blair sees one car at the CPS lot at 2:15 p.m., and it is not Richard Allen's car. Richard Allen voluntarily was interviewed on October 13th, 2022. Watching the videoed interview, it is apparent that Richard thought he was being asked questions to help assist the police in solving the crime. In trying to provide Liggett and Mullen a timeline of when Richard Allen, was at the trail, Richard stated he arrived at the trail around noon. Later in the interview, Richard Allen told Liggett and Mullen that he probably left the trail around 1:30. In his affidavit, Liggett states that Richard Allen parked his black Ford Focus at the CPS building lot and then cut over to the trail, where Richard Allen, then walked to the high bridge, ultimately following Abby and Libby across the bridge before abducting them. After murdering the girls, Liggett stated in his affidavit that Betsy observed a man that Liggett claims is Richard Allen walking along 300 North at approximately 3:57 p.m. westbound toward the CPS parking lot. The implication being that Richard Allen was walking back to his car after abducting and murdering the girls. If what Liggett wrote in his affidavit were true, then Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have been parked in the CPS lot from 1:30 p.m. until at least 4 p.m., giving him time to abduct the girls, murder the girls, and walk back to his black Ford Focus parked at the CPS lot sometime after 3:57 p.m., when Sarah observed Richard walking down 300 North. In other words, Liggett's timeline to work, Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have to have remained parked at the old CPS building from roughly 1:30 p.m. when Liggett claims Richard Allen arrived until roughly 4 p.m. after Liggett's claim. Richard Allen had then abducted and murdered the girls. If Richard's black Ford Focus was not on that CPS parking lot between those hours, then Liggett's timeline would be blown. In his deposition, Liggett was asked a series of questions by defense counsel, and Liggett answered those questions as follows. Question: is it your contention that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 1:29 roughly? Yes. How about 1:45? Yes. 2 o'clock? Yes. 2:14? Yes. 2:15? Yes. 2:30? Yes. 2:45? Yes. 3 o'clock? Yes. 3:15? Yes. 3:30? Yes. 3:45? Yes. 4 o'clock? Yes. 4:30? No. What time do you contend that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was no longer parked at the old CPS building? Around 4. Through his answers, Liggett demonstrated that he recognized that for his timeline to work, Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have to be parked at the CPS lot from 1:30 to 4 p.m. in order to give Richard the time to abduct and murder the girls and return his vehicle. They did that and asked those questions, you guys, to show that they knew exactly what they were doing, and he knew that this timeline would be blown if it's outside of that, or if it's not there at all. Therefore, if there was any evidence that Richard Allen's black Ford Focus was not parked in the old CPS parking lot between those times, that is something that he, Liggett, would be required to share with Judge Diener. Rather than tell the truth, Liggett concealed the evidence that Richard's black Ford Focus had left the CPS parking lot probably at 1:30 p.m., but certainly before 2:15 p.m. when Blair saw a completely different car. And therefore, Richard Allen could not have been on the bridge at 2 p.m. or committed the murder soon after. This is going to make you vomit. For starters, as noted earlier, in his interview with Liggett and Mullen, Richard Allen stated that Richard Allen, arrived at the trails around noon and left around 1:30. Liggett failed to inform Judge Diener that Richard Allen stated he had left the trails at 1:30. He should have, especially if there were evidence that a different vehicle was parked at the old CPS lot after 1:30, but before 4, which would then support Richard Allen's statement that Richard Allen, left the CPS building around 1:30. So the next question to ask is, did anyone see a vehicle parked at the old CPS building between 1:30 and 4 that did not resemble Richard Allen's black Ford Focus, thus supporting the timeline that Richard Allen provided to Liggett, but which Liggett concealed from Judge Diener? And the answer is yes. Betsy Blair saw a different car. When Betsy Blair arrived at the trail at roughly 1:46 p.m., Betsy Blair had parked her vehicle in a different location that the defense calls the Mears parking lot. When she left the Moon Hyatt Trail, the bridge, and pulled out of Mears parking lot, Betsy Blair headed west on 300 North in her car and was spotted on the Hoosier Harvest Store camera heading toward the old CPS lot at 2:14 p.m. The old CPS lot is only a 36-second drive from the Hoosier Harvest Store camera. Giving Betsy Blair a full minute to drive from Hoosier Harvest Store to the old CPS lot would mean that Betsy Blair would pass the old CPS lot at around 2:15 p.m. Remember that Liggett has admitted under oath that at 2:15 p.m. Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would be parked at the CPS building while Richard Allen, was abducting and murdering the girls. However, at 2:15 p.m., when Betsy Blair passed the old CPS building, remember, all of this left out of that PCA that blows it the fuck up, just like it's going to blow it the fuck up that we've all seen in the Idaho 4 case. But however, at 2:15 p.m., when Betsy Blair passed the old CPS building, Betsy Blair did not see a black Ford Focus parked at the old CPS lot. The car that Betsy Blair observed as she passed the old CPS building at 2:15 p.m. looked nothing like a black Ford Focus. According to Liggett's own report, Betsy Blair observed one car parked in the CPS lot at 2:15, and that car resembled a 1965 Ford Comet that her father once owned. The shape had sharper angles. Again, to whom did Betsy Blair provide this description of a 1965 Ford Comet-looking angular in appearance vehicle? None other than fat fuck Liggett himself. Liggett was fully aware that the car that Betsy Blair described as being backed into a spot at the old CPS building looked nothing like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. but Liggett concealed that information from Judge Diener. It should also be noted that if Richard Allen left at 1:30 p.m., then the person that Betsy Blair observed on the high bridge at roughly 2 was not Richard Allen. This would explain why the person that Betsy Blair observed on the high bridge looked nothing like Richard Allen, because it wasn't Richard Allen. It was a 20-year-old kid with brown poofy hair. Concealing Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle at the old CPS building from Judge Diener may have temporarily plugged a hole in the dam of Liggett's problematic timeline when Diener reviewed the affidavit on October 13, 2022, but Liggett's concealment has now been exposed. This is sick. And guys, for the record, Mercury makes the comment, but 1965 vehicle. You guys know what those big clunkers look like? Like they're like, oh my God. To read this makes, if this does not make your blood boil as I read this, then you, my friends, you are not truth and transparency. This motherfucker cheated, lied. What about for these girls? These girls were murdered. And you're just gonna lie like this? Betsy Blair is like, I didn't fucking tell you that. I didn't. A Ford, wait, what? A new car compared to a 1965 vehicle? You are awesome for referring to Liggett as a pet bug. You guys, I am just so sick of this. I am so sick of, you guys think that they're lying when they are writing this? These are police reports. These are eyewitnesses coming forward and saying, I didn't say this. I didn't say this to this man. I told this man he was in his 20s. I told this man I saw a clunker. I didn't see Richard Allen. I'm telling you right to this day, you get on that stand, put me on that stand and ask me the question if I saw Richard Allen, my answer is going to be no. That is not who I saw. Give me some, why aren't you go to the high school, grab your fucking yearbooks, and you start flipping through those yearbooks and you find him. You get this neighborhood, you get the neighborhoods around there, and you go and you get those damn yearbooks and you put it in front of her and you say, let's find this poofy fucker. Why couldn't it be though that sketch be out there right away? Think about it. Why couldn't that sketch just be out there? Ugh. What would be so wrong that Betsy's, like, if you're the parents and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe the parents have to go through this. What do you mean? Those lawyers just gave these parents something that they've been dying to get for 6 years. I would be knocking on their doors and hugging those men if I was one of those parents. I'd be knocking on the door of Rossi and Baldwin and saying, thank you. Thank you. You've given me more information than anyone in law enforcement from day one. And you try to be as, I think, like, truthful as possible. And I want to know more because I believe that you have more. You didn't put it all in there. And I want to help. Thank you so much. Like, my kid was murdered and I have some answers and I want whoever did this and I want to help. And I don't believe that you would write these things for this man if, like, you're coming from police reports. Can I please see these police reports? Can I please? And then you get the families rallying for Richard Allen. like they should be right now, that's what I would be doing. My happy ass would be down there, and I would be demanding that Richard Allen at least be let out on his own recognizance until this gets handled off of this. But I want answers. And if a parent doesn't want answers, then you should fucking question that. You should ask yourself why they wouldn't want answers. Ridiculous. Unbelievable. So sad. But I would be the ones down there, and I'd be saying thank you to those lawyers, because this is the first time that I've been lied to. And then I would be going and talking to Betsy Blair. But I mean, I don't even know if you're allowed to do all that stuff. I don't know if people are making people stay away from each other, but this case divided a town, okay? But that was at the hands of the police. This should have been solved within weeks. But if you think about it, how much money has the town made since this happened? Oh, Lana, can Richard Allen have public visitors? I don't know. I wouldn't go anywhere near that fucking jail, though, that prison. So I think what Richard Allen could have is he could definitely have like a rally outside of the courthouse. I think that people should be rallying down there and people should be protesting peacefully. And I'd be willing to drive the 3 hours to start it and get a megaphone out there and start telling that fat fuck what I think about him, and using my First Amendment right to manage sick. It's just sick. But I could tell you this, if I was one of those parents, I'd be knocking on Baldwin and Rossi's door, and I'd be saying thank you. Makes sense for gag orders everywhere for greater security, they say, because their arses will be in the wind when truth is revealed. I'll protest with you. I know, right? I mean, this is the stuff that you want to protest about. This is the stuff that deserves protesting peacefully, reading in an educational way and being smart about something. But this is just, woo! This is called corruption. This is deep corruption. You know what, though? I thought it was over when I was reading this, right? And it says, and it even gets worse. And I said, it even gets worse. He says, when asked to describe the color of the car that resembles the 1965 Ford Comet, Betsy Blair actually told Liggett to his face that the car she saw was not black. The pen is royal blue. The car is not black. That is right. Liggett heard from the mouth of Betsy Blair that the 1965 Ford Comet-looking vehicle was not even black, which is the color that Liggett needed the vehicle to be in order to fit the description of Richard's black Ford Focus. He lies and said, motherfucker, omitting, just changing. This is insanity. Because of Betsy's description of the car she viewed at the old CPS building, evidence supports that Richard Allen left at 1:30 p.m., as he told Liggett. At some point in time after Richard Allen left the old CPS lot, an older, angular-looking car that resembled a 1965 Comet and was not black arrived at the old CPS building. Then the driver of this 1965 Ford Comet-looking angular non-black vehicle backed into the CPS parking lot. At roughly 2:15 p.m., when returning home, Betsy Blair observed this car that reminded her of a car her dad had growing up. All of this adds up to this fact. Evidence concealed by Liggett supports that Richard Allen was not at the crime scene, as he had already left at 1:30 p.m. and was already home by the time that Betsy Blair observed the 1965 Ford Comet-looking non-black vehicle at the CPS parking lot. And Liggett knew it. He fucking knew it. Again, because of Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle she observed at the old CPS building, evidence supports that Richard Allen was home by the time Betsy Blair saw the 20-year-old with brown poofy hair on the bridge, which again explains why the person on the bridge looks nothing like Richard Allen, because it wasn't Richard Allen. This is simply outrageous and abusive behavior on the part of Liggett. Abusive in that Liggett used his power as a law enforcement officer to conceal evidence to secure a search warrant 26 days before an election in which he was running for sheriff. And at the brunt end of Liggett's abusive behavior is Richard Allen, who has been sitting and suffering in hell for over 10 months. Liggett doesn't even have the excuse that Betsy Blair provided the description to a different detective, and therefore he, Liggett, could not have known of Blair's distinguishing description. No, Liggett heard that description straight from the mouth of Betsy Blair, yet chose to conceal this timeline-destroying evidence from Judge Diener. If Judge Diener had known that the evidence showed that Richard Allen was home by the time that the girls were abducted at 2:13 p.m., Diener would have never signed that search warrant. But that's not all. It gets even worse. Worse? Yeah. Liggett flat out lied when he told Judge Diener that in 2017, Sarah described a man as wearing muddy and bloody clothing and was also wearing a blue jacket. For Liggett's timeline to work, not only did Liggett need for Richard Allen's black Ford Focus to be part of the old CPS lot between 1:30 and 4, but he also needed Sarah. He needed Sarah's statement concerning the man she claims she saw walking to match that of Betsy Blair's description of a man wearing a blue jacket. It would also help if the man had blood on his clothing to further tie him into the murder. In his affidavit, Liggett wrote the following. An interview was done of Sarah, 2017. She said that she was traveling east. She said that he was wearing a blue-colored jacket and blue jeans and was muddy and bloody. She further stated that it appeared that he had gotten in a fight. Investigators determined from the video that she was on 300 North at 15:57 hours. The blue jacket described by Sarah would need to match the color of the jacket described by Betsy Blair to help Liggett with his timeline. Again, the blood on the clothing would be an added bonus in that it would tie the man that Sarah observed in with the murders and therefore assist Judge Diener in making the decision to sign the warrant. The problem is that in 2017, Sarah told Liggett to his face that the man she observed walking on 300 North was wearing a tan-colored coat, a lighter colored coat, not a blue jacket. This is a problem because the color of the man's coat did not match the coat of the 20-year-old boy with the poofy hair. Around, 2. Also, Sarah said that Liggett needed the color of that jacket to match the color of the jacket worn by Betsy Blair had observed. And yeah, that just didn't happen. But more. Hooey. In the report, the problem was that Sarah did not observe the man walking down 300 North wearing a blue jacket. She observed a tan jacket. This meant that Sarah and Betsy Blair observed two different men. This created a problem for Liggett's timeline. So instead of being honest, Liggett chose to represent to Judge Diener that Sarah observed a man wearing a blue jacket when in her interview in 2017, she said it was tan. You are out of your blessed mind. Remember that Liggett has testified under oath that only one man, Richard Allen, committed these crimes. But that's not all. They said that's not all. Nowhere in Sarah's interview in 2017 does Sarah use the word bloody to describe the clothing that the man was wearing. Nowhere. This so-called muddy, bloody lady is actually just the muddy lady. Sarah only used the words muddy to describe the man she observed on 300 North. It certainly would help Judge Diener in making his decision if the man walking down the street was wearing a blue jacket and also wearing bloody clothing, as if he had just murdered somebody. However, Liggett just flat out fucking lied. That fat fuck. Sarah never mentioned a blue coat and never mentioned the word blood in her 2017 interview. Instead of lying, had Liggett just told Judge Diener that the man walking down 300 North at 3:57 p.m. was wearing a light-colored tan coat instead of a blue coat, then Judge Diener would have realized that Betsy Blair and Sarah did not see the same man. Instead of lying, had Liggett told Judge Diener that the man walking down 300 North only had on muddy clothing, then Judge Diener would not have associated that man with murder. Again, Liggett can't claim that when drafting the affidavit, Liggett relied on the false description provided by a different investigator. Nope. Sarah told Liggett to his face that the man she observed was wearing a tan coat and was only muddy. If Judge Diener had been told the truth, he would not have, nor should have he signed the search warrant. If this doesn't make your blood boil. Now, why did Judge really recuse himself? This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. But that's where we're going to end today. And this is just, I believe that the Florida fires were race motivated, by the way. This is just mainstream media that talks about this case in any other way that it should be talked about, which is a complete cover-up by law enforcement. If you guys continue to support people that continue to put out the false narrative, just stop watching their shit. Stop watching their shit, okay? And guess what happens? Then they're going to have to change the way that they report. Otherwise, they're not going to fucking make any money, okay? So if we stop watching the fucking bullshit, if we stop supporting it in that manner, because look at all these people now. They're coming, these mainstream media channels, they're coming to YouTube and doing premieres and shit like that. Think about it. Why are you coming over here? You guys have like all this money. You guys have a studio and da-da-da. Why are you coming over here to YouTube? Because they need to push down their mainstream media narrative. Don't watch the shit. You want to fucking hurt people in their pockets? That's how you hurt people. You stop watching the shit. No views, no money, period. And when you see something, you say something. And do it in a respectful manner. You know, but it's, this is why Richard Allen's defense team is demanding that there's cameras in the courtroom. I don't see this going to court. I don't see this going to trial. I don't know how it can. It's almost like something that you don't want to see go to trial, because then you got to have a lot of people asking themselves, am I going to commit perjury for people? I'm not committing perjury for anybody. You know, if what I say is what I think is the truth, you know, it's one thing, not realizing that, oh my God, someone lied to me, you know, but to flat out be the person, I'm not committing you're not going to have somebody come to me and say, I need you to say this to cover for this person. Get the fuck, you know, I'm going to tell you to do, I'm going to tell you to go grab your ankles. But you guys are great. Love y'all. Lana, if Ned calls back, please record it, please. So, yeah. If Ned texts me, I'm going to say, I'm not taking text messages, Ned. You're going to have to call Mama Bear. All right. With humans such as Lana and others like your members and subscribers and others searching for the truth, yes, we will. There's a lot of similarities that, and you know what? In the Idaho 4 case of this case, you know, knives being used, probably the biggest similarity. There's just so many like unexplainable things, right? But the big difference is that they went, you know, arrest somebody within 7 weeks versus, you know, this case, drug on, right? I'm surprised that none of these people, like a Sarah or a Betsy, didn't end up having an accident and dying, to be honest, because then they could not, like, ever speak, you know, at a trial. But that's the shit that this is sick. This is so sick. And anybody that wants to say that these lawyers or anybody discussing this is hurting the families, you're a fool. Those lawyers just did the families the biggest favor, and it was free. It didn't cost them $1. It didn't cost them $1. And they just got the truth. You've been waiting 6 years to get the truth. And those lawyers, I'd be knocking on their door. and I'd be hugging them, and I would be saying, "Can I hire you to sue the fuck out of the Carroll County?" That's what I would be saying, because they just did all the work. They not only are defending a man that was looking like, probably being killed, right? I don't even know, does Indiana have the death penalty? But here they weren't only just his lawyer; they were the investigators to put this all together, which that's what I like to do. Like, here, I'll put it all together for you, and then you can go litigate it, And they did such a good job of like staying silent when they did all of this work. Okay. So they could just, put this bombshell of 136 pages together. But this is not fantasy. This is truth. This is justice. This is transparency. And if any of these parents or relatives of the girls speak out in any type of other way, truly think about why. Because that should tell you everything. You as a parent seeing this and somebody giving you this, people go their whole lives never getting an answer like this when stuff like this happens. And for anybody to come out any type of way other than to be thankful, that should truly, truly, truly stick in your mind, and you should ask yourself why. Love you all. Be brave. Be safe. I will be doing, this cost Greg his life. I do believe that, and I'm looking into that because I think there's more to that. There's a lot of people that get paid a lot of money to do something and then go sit in prison for 20 years and shit like that for people, but I don't see that guy moving because it was an officer. But there's, yeah. But I'll be on a little bit later here to have you guys on up, talk about the Idaho 4 case after lunch. Dinky, I love you. Richard Allen needs to sue. Everybody needs to sue. I'm gonna be in Florida. I'm gonna go talk to the Moores. I'm gonna go make sure that Dr. Moore makes, millions once he's done with Boundary County. Finally, I got some channels want to talk about Dr. Moore. It's amazing. I'm so happy about that. The Dr. Moore Brian Drake case. Solved that. Yes, I know that she's at CrimeCon. So is JLR. I was going to be in CrimeCon, but I'm doing something with my son instead. I'm going to be actually taking him to the Messi game. Messi just hurt himself. He better bounce back. Going to Miami to take him to that. But I'm doing something with my son. It involves the Ohio State Notre Dame game. But it's that's why I didn't go to CrimeCon. I actually had tickets, couldn't even use them. Maybe I should go give them to JLR. Again, I love all of you guys that are always here to support. You guys are the reason the channel is what it is. I'm so proud of this channel because I'm so proud of all of you guys. I'm even proud when people come over here and they can say, Lana, I totally, disagree with a million different things, but there's one thing that I'll give you credit for, and it's your work ethic and it's your passion and, even that you're helping or whatever. And that's what it's all about, is because I can respect people, but I can also disagree with them. And I'll be the first person to admit, tell me where I was wrong. Tell me a case that I take on from an angle that it's always that controversy. Why would I be taking on a case that I believe that was all handled properly? There's no need for me to be there. There's no need for me to help. I take cases on where I see deception, where I see people being wronged. That's where our help is needed. So thank you guys. And until next time, just want to say thank you, because it's not just my voice. It's all of you guys. It's our voice. TNT Dynamite. Bye guys. Take care.